This episode is sponsored by the Freedom Builder System. For just $57 a month, you can get my custom Biz Builder AI, plus membership in the Freedom Builder community. Think of it as having me, your personal business coach and corporate escape Sherpa, right in your pocket 24/7. Biz Builder AI is your business building tool with 5 Sherpas in one powerful tool. It's a coach in AI form that helps you choose the right idea, create offers, build your financial runway, and market yourself without the cringe. And the Freedom Builder membership gives you the training, community, and accountability to actually follow through. So you're never doing this alone. Think of it as clarity, tools, and support all in one for less than the cost of a dinner out and a fraction of what you'd spend on private coaching. Check the show notes for the link, and let's get into today's episode. Welcome back to the Gen X Remix, Midlife, Laughs, and Next Acts, the podcast for bold women who are ready to build a business that lights you up and escape corporate. Yes, always in that order. I'm your host, Tabatha Jones, the Corporate Escape Sherpa. Today's episode is the Two World Remix with Amanda Van Der Heiden. Amanda went from record-setting corporate high achiever to navigating the shock of a layoff just weeks before her wedding. Instead of going back to the corporate grind, she stepped into entrepreneurship, proving that designing the life you want is always an option. We're going to talk about organizing chaos, setting goals that actually stick, and why mindset plus action equals victory. And before we dive in, don't forget to grab your free copy of the Corporate Escape Starter Kit. It's my step-by-step roadmap to building your business before you leave corporate. The link will be in the show notes. Let's dive in. Amanda, welcome to the Gen X Remix. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you and hear all about your journey and your story. Before we get going too far, though, I'd love to know, what is your remix story?
I have a few of them, honestly. It's not just one, and that's another good thing to think about. I know you do a lot of these remix stories or pivots or however people want to call them. I love that you use the word remix, but at the end of the day, it's amazing. Life is a journey and a roller coaster, and a lot of times there's more than one. Actually going through one recently too, but basically my remix story is I have started off in early childhood education development, thought I was going to be a teacher, ended up teaching while I was in school to be a teacher. That's a whole other story. Fell into corporate America and was with many large organizations in my 20s, set lots of records and was a high achiever and overachiever, and then ended up getting laid off, right? And so that was probably one of the hardest things I had ever been through personally, because I was so wrapped up as a high potential, high achiever, overachiever. You get so wrapped up in your identity as this person who's set all these records and is always like very, well known at very large organizations. And to have to, even when it's not personal, it still feels personal. It's still an emotional roller coaster. And so it was very difficult because it was something out of my control completely. But I realized how much my identity was wrapped up in what I do and my work. And, you hear people go through it, but until you really experience that emotional range, it's hard to really explain. And so I had decided, I was interviewing a ton, going through and trying to figure out, so you have the emotional component, but then you also have the logistic component of it of, okay, need to pay bills, need to get another job and all that, and go through that. And it was kind of a crazy time in my life, especially it was 3 weeks before I was getting married. And so that was super fun timing. And I was in the middle of a graduate program for my master's degree. And so I was wedding planning. I had my master's going on. I was working crazy hours. And then I was laid off. And it just was kind of a whirlwind of like a lot of big events happening all around the same time and jumbled up with a lot of different emotions. And so I was interviewing everywhere. I was interviewing for full-time work. I was interviewing for contract work. But at my core, since I was very young, they didn't have this. When we were growing up, they didn't talk a lot about entrepreneurship or any of that stuff. But I always knew I wanted my own business someday. And it's funny how the people that you see and kind of their life, it gives you this kind of playbook, right? So I was like, well, I'll do 30 years in corporate America, and then I will go out on my own business. And I had this idea, this self-limiting belief that I needed to do 30 years first before I could have my own business. And so I was interviewing for a bunch of things. And at the time, so my then husband said, not so nicely, BS. He called me on it and he's like, you should just start your business. And I was like, well, I've only got 15 years, not 30 years. And he's like, that's an excuse, just do it. And I kept my foot in kind of two worlds for a while until I just realized like how much I enjoy, fighting for other people and creating opportunities for other people and really giving value to organizations and clients and businesses and not being limited. It's so cliche, but I was hitting ceilings as a woman. My first ceiling I hit, I was 25 years old. You should never hit a ceiling at 25 years old. That's ridiculous, right? And so again, in my career, my corporate career, I kept hitting ceilings, whereas with entrepreneurship, when you own your own business, there is no ceiling. So the sky's the limit, which is very exciting for me, but, can also be terrifying too.
Oh my gosh, there's so much in that. So we're going to
So
unpack a little bit. So first of all, having the foot in two different worlds, that is a thing. That's something I actually coach on a lot because as a midlife woman, in my 50s, I know that going back into the corporate world can be a challenge. And so I do love helping women kind of start building that business before they leave so they feel that security. But I'm curious for you, like, how did it feel as you were making that transition? Like, I know it's a little scary, but tell me about that feeling and what was going through your mind as you were making the change.
I'm a planner. I'm a project manager, program manager. I always like to joke rose by any other name. So I like having like the roadmap. I like planning, 5 steps ahead. And when you're in it, you can't plan. It's life can only be understood reverse, right? But you just do it and you're like, is this the actions I should be taking? What should I be doing? Should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? And it's very overwhelming. Humans psychologically are not wired to be able to make we do better, and we learn this, we do better when you have a few choices to choose between. But when you have like endless opportunity, or you could go this direction, go that direction, you could do a million different things, most people get froze, they get stuck, right? And because it's overwhelming to try to think through all those different variables and things. And so it's really difficult because you don't know if the energy you're putting in is going to pay off. You don't know if you're headed in the right direction, if you're on the right path, if you should be on 5 different paths. Should you go all in on one? Should you try to spread it out? And there's a lot of different advice out there. And so I would just say for anyone who's going through that now, or, who is thinking about going through it, it can be really overwhelming. So find someone, find something, whether it's a resource, whether it's this podcast to listen to kind of say, okay, at least I have an idea of the direction I want to go in, and at least I'm heading towards to the place I want to be. But yeah, at the time it was very overwhelming.
Oh my gosh. I can absolutely just picture it. I mean, I've bucked it, so I get it. And I did do my 30 years in corporate. So I'm glad that you made the choice before the 30 years, because that's a long time.
Yeah.
So good. And I love how you explain that, just there's so many directions, so many things. And as Gen X, we didn't really grow up with that. Oh, you can do all these things. The world's your oyster. Here's all these ideas and creative things, right? No, it's you move out, you either go to school or get a job or do both, which I did, and, land into corporate and, oh, you're good at it and you're an overachiever. So yes. So I get that. I feel it at my core. And then there's just so many things once you start exploring that entrepreneurial side. Like, I've met people who do things I had never heard of. And I'm just blown away that, oh, you love that. It's totally tied to your purpose. And you figured out how to make money doing that. And you're making the world a better place because you're creating people who are happier or helping people create a happier life. So that is amazing. I actually built an AI tool just recently that I launched to help people with all of those thoughts because there are so many.
There's so many. And they're usually at 2 a.m. when you can't pick up the phone and call someone. So that is amazing.
Yes.
That's very exciting.
Oh my gosh, so wild. So one of the things as I was preparing for our show that I caught, and I love it because I also kind of identify with this, you call yourself a chaos organizer. So what we talked about is a little bit of that mental and emotional chaos, but what does chaos organizer mean to you and what does it look like in practice?
Yeah, so many people try to control, right? To control the narrative of, okay, I'm going to do this, and this is going to be outcome, and I'm going to control it. And so I don't say controlling the chaos because that's not possible. But when you acknowledge, okay, there's a lot going on right now, right? That's kind of what I mean by chaos. And there's a lot going on, a lot of different directions you can go into. It's what is within your control, which usually is the first thing is mindset, right? How are you thinking about what's happening and what are you going to do about it? Mindset plus action equals victory in my mind. That's kind of my personal formula. But so organizing the chaos to me, so I'm usually part of these large scale global rollouts for learning and development, massive companies. One of my smallest clients right now is 3,000 people in 5 countries. And so when I say organizing the chaos, truly, in some ways, it really is, trying to put a system in place, trying to figure out how we're moving forward and getting these huge initiatives off the ground, whether it's a culture transformation or an AI implementation or a technology transformation, whatever the case may be. It's how do you get all these different types of people at different levels and stages in their life, in their career, and get them kind of rowing in the same direction, right? And so it's kind of twofold. It's that's why I love the visual image of like organizing the chaos. It's like you're never going to be able to control it, but what you can do is acknowledge the chaos and then do what you can to like basically redirect the energy and be like, okay, how do we get it flowing this way versus that way? It's not really about stopping or starting. It's more about like, how do we move in the direction we want to go in?
I love that. And it can get very overwhelming for the chaos coordinator. So what are some tips or strategies that you use to kind of keep your head in the game and your eye on the prize rather than getting sucked into that chaos world?
Yeah. And there's so many layers to this because I deal with people, processes, and systems. Okay. So each one of those would have a completely different, unique answer to that specific question because the people side of it, everybody handles change differently, right? Some, you have your early adopters who are like all about change, too much so. Some of them are, very resistant. And then you have the middle group, right? So the way I would answer that question, if I'm thinking about from a people side of things, is what does this person need? What does this team need to be successful right now? Like, how are they showing up and what do they need to be able to get through this change, right? And then for processes, a lot of times people jump into solving before they really understand what's really happening. And so a lot of times I try to explain, like, first we have to understand get to the root of the issue is before you can solve for it. A lot of people like to come in with a solve. I can't tell you how many senior leaders have brought me in and said, my people need time management training. 90% of the time, it is not a time management issue. It's a vision issue. It's a communication issue. It's a leadership issue. It's very rarely an actual time management issue. And so I will say, why do we think that? What's going on? Tell me more. Let's find out. Stay curious, figure out what's happening, right? And so when you even dig just a little bit under the surface and try to really understand the process of like what's currently happening and what's current workload and blah, 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 all these things, right? Because until you really can see the big picture of the full chaos, like all the different moving parts, it's really difficult to come up with a solution that's actually going to make an impact and really add value in a point of change.
I love that. It takes me back a little bit to my corporate life. I think very much like you do. I ask a lot of questions, talk to a lot of people. But I found myself under a leadership team that liked to just throw out solutions without really talking to anybody. And I was like, what the hell are we doing? And why are we doing that? Because I don't think that's
Exactly.
really the thing. So I love how you talk about that and, really looking at all of the pieces of the situation before you truly assess this is the problem and this is how we implement the fix.
Mhm.
So it's very strategic, which makes perfect sense. So for those of you who are jumping to quick conclusions about what the problem is, I mean, I remember hearing everything from, oh, it's this team's just negative, or oh, they're just, complacent, to, the same, like time, it's a time management issue. It's an organization issue. And I'm
Mhm.
like, And then as you dig in and peel back those layers and get all the perspectives, it just helps bring all those things back into alignment because you have that full story.
And there's a like I'm really action driven person. So for those of you listening as an individual, if you're going through a change, even at like a goal level, if you have a goal that you're setting for yourself, right? If the fun trick, the tip is basically ask yourself the 5 whys. So basically, I don't remember where I got this from. I didn't create it. I love it. I found it once and I love it and I live by it now. Is even myself, when I set a goal for myself or I want to change, I say what it is. And then I say, why do I want this? So often we're setting goals before we even understand why we want the goal. So for example, they'll say, the goal is I want to lose 20 pounds. Okay. Why do you want to lose 20 pounds? Well, I really want to feel better and I really want to have more energy. Okay, great. Why do you want more energy? Well, I haven't been spending time with my kids and I'm tired and I just get exhausted. Okay, why, right? Oh, you're only sleeping 2 hours a night. So maybe 20 pounds isn't the problem. Maybe it's that you're only getting 2 hours. So when you drill down even a few layers, you start to get to the real what you're trying to accomplish. And then you realize that what you thought was the goal wouldn't have actually solved what you're really trying to solve for. So the five
Got
whys is a
it.
great action. You get out a piece of paper, you can do it by yourself. And why do I want this? And why? And you'll be surprised where you get to. Like even 3 or 4 whys later, you're like, oh, okay, that's not where I thought I was going with that, but okay.
It's amazing what you find when you just keep digging just a little bit more. So I love your strategy there. And hopefully, our listeners took a quick note because the 5 whys is really great. Especially, as we're coming into the new year and we've got things going on, like setting those goals. I don't believe in resolutions. I know I say it kind of regularly, but I don't. But goals are very important. And understanding why, and not just, setting maybe a financial goal, right? I want to earn this much money. Well, why? Well, because I like money and shiny things, right? Well, why? And it gets down to usually that stability, security, or future planning type of thing, which then makes more sense and ties you so much more to that goal and holds you accountable to taking action because you're like, oh yeah, this is exactly why I'm doing that thing.
And it
So
keeps you
good.
motivated longer. Like I agree,
Yeah.
I'm aligned with you 1000%. I don't believe in New Year's resolutions, but as we're almost up to the new year, goal setting is much more productive than resolution setting. And getting to that deeper understanding is gonna not just I love the accountability, but it also keeps you motivated when you hit a roadblock.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say, and just one last point on that too is, sometimes you have a hard day or a major roadblock that gets you to a spot of feeling like you want to give up. But being able to go back and look at that why exercise again, just gets you back. Sometimes just pulls you right back out of the gutter and right back into action. So you're going the right way.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
helpful. The other thing I learned as I was digging around on you, I'm a little bit of a digital stalker. You talk
Okay.
about designing the life you want versus really reacting to what's handed to you. And that hit me a little bit just because a lot of times I see, especially midlife women, we're just reacting all the time. We're not really being strategic or designing, as you say, designing that life. Tell me a little bit about that and kind of what are those steps that you recommend to help shift from that kind of chaos, maybe survival mode to that more intentional design?
Yeah, so often we're being reactive instead of proactive, and we're constantly looking at, I'm doing this and I'm juggling my kids and my aging parents, and all the and work and I this and this. And so it's and this is unfortunately, it's a cliche, but it's true. Like as women, we all are constantly taking care of everybody else. But a lot of times, myself included, I am last on the list, but behind the kids and the parents and the animals and the, all that, and work and all that. And so it's really about, we talked a little bit about goals. So it's a perfect kind of transition into this I'm a strong believer in reverse engineering your goals. So what you want to do is you're going to set a goal and you're going to get to your why, right? Like what about this goal is really exciting to you and really energizing you and getting you into it. And then you reverse engineer it and break it down into smaller and smaller and smaller pieces until it gets so small that it's actually manageable, right? So many times people create goals that are too elusive, too generic. You don't know if you hit it or not. And so that's when you want to get really specific. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard of SMART goals, right? Make it specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and timely. But you want to even get further down. So when you talk about designing your life, you're going even one step further from that. So you heard, I love strategy. I love planning 5 steps ahead. And I will say that by taking a goal and then reverse engineering back, that's really effective. But another exercise I like to do for people, with people, and even myself, each year, especially like beginning of the year is always great time, renewed energy, but to look at life goals, like what do I want to do with my life? When I'm gone, what do I want to be remembered for? And that can feel very overwhelming, right? But the point of the designing your life, and I heard this from someone else and I love it. It's take a look at your calendar. Does your calendar align with what you say you actually want to achieve? Because a lot of times we say we want to, let's say, write a book, right? We want to write a book, but yet on our we're in meetings all day. We've got the kids stuff, we've got family stuff, we got whatever pet obligations. And when are you actually doing the book? It's like in your mind, like, oh, I want to do this, or you save it for last, like you save your own healthcare for last, right? And so if you're not prioritizing it, if it's not actually in your calendar or you have a plan to actually achieve it, it's never going to happen. And so that's why I like to talk about designing not just reverse engineering your goals, but also designing the life that you want. It's what's most important to you. And you have to understand that vision, your values, of course. And then it gets very clear, and then you can consciously choose. Because so often people think they're making a choice, but people are very much creatures of habit. So what you're eating every day, what your exercise level is every day, we default to our habits. And so a lot of times, like looking at that full picture, like what are my values? Where do I want to be spending my time? Where do I see the most significance? What are some big goals I want to achieve? And when you look at them all in alignment and in perspective to make sure that they are in alignment, you're going to see so much better results and you're going to feel so much more fulfilled by it. So there's that piece of it, is like the big level, like values and all that. But there's also the energy levels I like to look at too. So for example, I know typically around 2 p.m., 3 p.m., I'm crashing, right? So usually around 2 p.m., 3 p.m., I'm crashing. And I've learned my own energy levels. I need to physically get up from my desk and go do something physical and active at that time. And that renews me so that I can be energized for the nighttime. Whereas in the old days, I would just like power through. I just power through. And what I found, and this is like backed by science and neuroscience on this, is that if you just power through, you're not going to be as effective. You're going to be slower. You're not going to do things as well. And so powering through, and like so often we do that, right? We just power through and we just like put all of our energy into it. But it's not as good as if we actually stop, take a minute, take 5, do whatever you have to do, and then come back refreshed. You're going to have such better results. So it's designing where you spend your time based off of your values, but it's also looking at your day and thinking of your own energy levels of, are you a morning person? Are you a night person? I know if I need to do something creative, I need to do it after the sun sets at night. And that's just me. I know that about myself. And so I save that time for myself. Whereas some people, I know that they like to do it 5 o'clock in the morning, right? And so I'm going to front load activities that I don't have to be as conscious for at 6 a.m., but try to keep some energy level for late at night, 9 p.m. when I'm doing my most creative work. Again, you know yourself the best, and be conscious of those energy, like the dips and the valleys and the peaks.
Oh my gosh. as I'm listening to you, I've got the quote from Step Brothers in my head. Did we just become best friends? Because I
Love it.
swear,
Yes.
everything you just said, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, all of that. And it ties so much to the work I do as well, just because when I explain to women who want to start a business before they leave corporate, just 1 hour a day, but it has to be 1 hour dedicated on your calendar. I don't care if it's in 15-minute increments, but if it's not on your calendar, it's not a priority. It's not something you're really valuing, and someday will never arrive.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way that you just explained that so articulately is awesome. And I'm one of those people. It's so funny. There's everybody who's like what was it? A lark or an owl, right? Are you a morning person or a night? I'm like, I'm that weird bird that's in the middle. Like 10 to 2 is my jam zone. What is that? Like a happy pigeon? Like, I don't know, but neither lark nor owl.
As long as you know when you're doing your best, like then you can protect that time. And that's the name of the game, is really understanding yourself so that you can get the most value out of it.
Exactly. Oh, so good. So much gold getting dropped here right now. Thank you. The other thing that I'm curious about, I use this language as well, so I feel like we are definitely very aligned in our teachings. When you coach people on leveling up, so you talk about leveling up, what does that mean?
So I saw this meme like many, many, many years ago. I want to say it was whenever the beginning of the memes, whenever that happened. I've lost all track of time. And it said, it was a birthday meme, and it said, "Happy birthday to me. I don't get older. I just level up." And I just love it so much. And I kind of over index on that. But it's really, and especially in today's world, like continuous improvement, continuous learning, like, that used to be back in the day, being a lifelong learner was like rare that people would think about it that way. You think about like Gen X, right? You go to school, you go to college, you get a job, you're done with your learning, right? For the most part, unless you're starting a new job or something. But in today's world, where the only constant is change and everything is always new and different, and we're constantly having to learn and be bombarded by information. And so again, the level up is really being strategic about focusing on where you want to be and focusing on how to get there. Once you figure out where you want to go, that's kind of the hardest part, because once you figure out where, then you're like, okay, how? That's a little bit easier to map out. And so the leveling up, I think about as, building on, there's a couple of ways it works, but the first is like you're building on your past experiences to your future success. It's also figuring out what and how to get to the next phase, right? And then, of course, leveling up is just fun. Be like, yeah, it's energizing, because it's kind of like, you think of like games and gaming and stuff. It's like, yeah, I'm this level. I'm going to get to the next one, But I love that idea of thinking about years, not in terms of age, but in terms of like levels. And that could be also phases and stages in your life too. It doesn't have to be anything specific, but it just gives a little bit of energy around it, because transitions can be really hard. Transitions can be really scary and draining, and that's okay too. People always like, "Oh, I love your energy," and I'm like, "Thank you, that's so nice." But it's more about how do you do things to get you excited, about that next level, because it can be hard and scary, and you do need energy reserves in order to get there sometimes. So it's just fun language to get you focused on the future.
That is a lot of fun. It makes me think a little bit, I was having a conversation with a business owner recently, and she was feeling a little bit like blah, right? Just, I'm not where I wanted to be. I thought I was going to be in a different place with this business at this point. And I looked at her and I said, I want to take this time to breathe, and I want to backtrack. You've been doing this for 7 months. I've watched you doing this for 7 months. Now let's talk about the things that I've seen that you've accomplished in that 7 months. And then I want you to add to it. And by the time we were done, she's like, "Oh yeah, I got this. I'm kicking ass and taking names." Like, it's not. So being able to acknowledge that the level up and the growth is such an important part of the journey that we so often we forget to celebrate. We just move on to the next thing. "Oh yeah, I did that thing. I'm moving on to the next thing." I'm like, well, wait, what about this big thing that you just accomplished? Let's pause. Let's say, wow, take a little moment of gratitude. Thank yourself for leaning in and doing this and taking this new learning. You've leveled up. Let's take that with some pride, and then let's move on to what's next. We're constantly in that state of motion, and sometimes forget to stop and just acknowledge where that leveling up has happened.
It's so true. And 7 months or 7 years, it's all the same. And so one thing I love to do is record things, to your point. Like, yes, we're definitely best friends, new best friends, but I love recording things, and you look back and you're like, you don't feel like you've accomplished anything. But when you look back, even, a month, a quarter, a year, you're like, wow, okay. Yeah, I actually have done a lot. No wonder why I'm so tired, right? But, I think that it's critical to track your progress, because when you're in it, you think, of course, I'm going to remember this moment, and I'm going to remember this win, and I'm going to remember, but you don't, because you're on the next thing. Exactly. You don't take the time. So record what you do, and then take time to be reflective, look back, read old notes from, or like your journal or diary or, calendar, or whatever it was. When you look back, it's amazing to see where you came from, and to celebrate that too. So,
oh my gosh, so good. We should be celebrating a whole lot more than we do. We tend to let the things that go downward stick with us a lot longer than the things that go upward. And we also forget a lot of times when things don't go the way we expected, we just got some priceless learning so that we can take it forward and do better. And I like how you framed that. So good. So why don't you tell us a little bit about really who you work with and what problems you help solve or what solutions you offer?
so it's really fun, because what I do, I get to work with people from all over the world, all different places in their career. And a lot of times I'm brought in when there's a big change happening. And there are people who are change management experts. I kind of am a mixed. I do a lot of everything. I have 2 degrees in psychology. And at the end of the day, I love people. So for me, I specialize in, like I mentioned, large scale global roles for learning and development initiatives. And what that really means is, at a point of major change where culture transformation, or company is coming out of, you know, bankruptcy, or I've worked with so many different types of clients. I've worked with 40 clients in 15 countries across 12 industries. So when you talk about the when you look at that and you just take a step back and you realize, like, one of my biggest things that I've learned is, like, people are people. And it seems so, like, too simple, but simple is not easy. And so it's important to remember that. So a lot of times I'm coming in and I'm called a lot of different things at a lot of different clients. But at the end of the day, it's really what we've been talking about here is, like, what's the strategy? Like, where you want to go? Where does the organization want to get to? So do you have the right strategy in place? Can you roll it out effectively, right? Can you help people through whatever this change is and make them as successful as they can be? And then how do you evaluate, is it working? And what was the return on investment? And was it worth it, right? And so a lot of times it's really just coming in and figuring out, organizing the chaos. It's like, what people do we need for this? What processes do we need? What systems do we need? Like, how do we make people successful? Because at the end of the day, organizations aren't really a thing. They're just a collection of people. And a lot of times people forget that. And if you can set your people up for success, then everything else falls into place. And I'm always assuring senior leadership and the C-suite of this is, if your people are set up for success, your company will do well. It's a very simple, obvious thing. And yet a lot of people forget this. And a lot of people forget, when you're going through times of change, whether it's an individual person or an organization, there's an emotional component to it. Even if it's work-related change, people have an emotional reaction. And so you have to appreciate that so that you can make sure they have what they need to be successful. And so that's a little bit kind of very high level about kind of what I do and how I do it.
So helpful and such just a cool place to be working in. I think it's so just cool. We're going to stick with cool today. That's the word.
Love it.
And just so impactful. That's the word I was digging in there for, menopause brain. Just impactful in the way that you're able to help these businesses make smarter, more strategic shifts while bringing their people along with them. A lot of times, and I've seen it, I worked for a large corporation for years. A big change comes along and it's like, oh, this thing changed. And they're like, well, that rocked my world. So what happens? Like, what do I do tomorrow?
Yeah, you don't just flip on the light switch.
Right. And, as a
okay,
leader,
we're doing this change. Okay, we're good.
of a team, you're like, Well, if I don't know what the heck's happening, how do they know what is happening? And
Yeah.
that change management component is important. The people, and remembering that people are people and every person is individual and they're going to process it differently. I love that you bring that awareness into. So, as we're getting close to the end of our episode, Amanda, if someone wants to connect with you to learn a bit more, or maybe they've got a major organization change or something coming up in their company, what is the best way to connect with you?
So I have a goodie for your audience. So I have a giveaway. It's www.gtdscorp.com/giveaway. And it's completely free. And it actually has a few templates I use in pre-project, project, and post-project phase. So help you organize the chaos. It has my proprietary project management template in it, which is very massive and can be used in many different ways. I've used it anything from corporate stuff to even wedding planning. So you can absolutely leverage it when you have a chaos to organize in your life. It's completely free. My gift to you, I just want people to be able to feel like they have the tools and the support they need to be successful, because like we mentioned, things can get overwhelming, but you've got this.
I love that. Thank you. And we'll make sure that link is in the show notes. So if somebody didn't catch it, they can definitely go grab it out of the show notes. And Amanda, what final words of advice or inspiration do you have for our listener today?
Especially if you're going through a remix, I would say be nice to yourself first. Be conscious and aware of how you're looking at the situation, right? Is this the worst thing in the world, or is this an opportunity to learn and change? And then put action behind it. And so it's okay to be in your moment and feel like you don't have the energy to go forward. That's okay. Recognize where you're at, but then take action of, well, if I want to change, how do I get out of this place? So first is definitely be true to who you are. Second is recognize how you're thinking about what's going on in the situation. Is this a challenge or is this a problem, right? There's a difference between that. As opportunity or is this a problem? And then put action behind it. Whether it's today, even if it's a little step forward, do something, because you're going to feel so much better if you act and you take control of the situation instead of just letting it happen to you.
That is excellent advice. Thank you so much for sharing that. Amanda, it's been a pleasure having you here on the Gen X Remix. And again, I feel like we just became best friends. I look forward to staying in touch. Take care.
Thank you.
Well, that was a fun remix with Amanda Van Der Heiden. And if you are a Step Brothers fan and you're still giggling about it, yes, we did just become best friends. She gave us a reminder that when one world ends, another one begins. And moving from that corporate identity to entrepreneurship isn't easy. But as Amanda shared, organizing chaos and taking action one step at a time makes the impossible possible. If you're ready to start your own next act, be sure to grab my Corporate Escape Starter Kit, your first step toward clarity, courage, and a business you love. And when you're ready for deeper support, check out my Freedom Builder system. For just $57 a month, you get access to my Biz Builder AI, plus the community, training, and accountability to help you follow through and take action toward your bold next act. Think of it as having a Sherpa, that's me, in your pocket 24/7. The links are waiting for you in the show notes. Until next time, friends, take care and stay sassy. Bye.